So, we're having an event for normal and rare cards, huh? It's funny, but looking at the decks that people have been making, as well as the staples that are viable this format, I can't help but be reminded of something. Now, what could that be? Let's see, Book of Moon and Forbidden Chalice as staples. Links are mostly bad, so they're just not around. No one is really doing any big combos that involve more than 3 monster zones. And that Spider Xyz is basically the best generic extra deck monster. Oh my god, I see. It's just Duel Links again. They're trying to trick me into playing Duel Links again? Well then, what better way to embrace the Duel Links festival than to play a deck that I always wanted to play in that game? But unlike in Master Duels, they were too expensive for a deck that was rogue at best. As you've probably guessed by looking at the title, in which case good going there, I'm talking about Yosenjus. They're a decent deck that's all about creating chains of normal summons with their monsters, dodging common restrictions on special summons, as well as getting off a few decent effects like searching and bouncing cards. Basically, think of them as the OG Flew Under Ease. Except, you know, without M-Pen's really powerful Floodgate. However, unlike Flew Under Ease, they also have the gimmick of returning to your hand in the end phase. This is both a blessing and a curse, since it keeps them mostly safe, but also leaves you wide open to your opponent's attacks. So how do we up the power of the deck a little? Well, by throwing in a bunch of kaijus, that's how. Even if we don't have access to the best cards like a Messiel, there are still a bunch of kaijus that are commons, as well as their field spell, to help us search them. The beauty of kaijus in this deck is that they do actually have some synergy with the Yosenjus besides just tributing your opponent's monsters. You see, you can just kaiju an opponent's monster, and then that lets you summon a kaiju to your own field. So then, thanks to the Yosenju cards, you can then just bounce back your opponent's kaiju to your own hand, leaving them vulnerable while you just got to keep your entire kaiju. Oh yeah, and the kaijus aren't hard once per turn, so you can just kaiju them again. If you have their field spell, they even get some effects which let you really easily OTK if they resolve. You then load the rest of the deck up with staples, and you've got yourself a pretty competent normal and rare festival deck. So why don't we have a look at it? So here's the deck. Look at that, not a single super rare or ultra rare in sight. Since it's primarily a Yosenju deck, let's start with them. First up, and most importantly, you want to run 3 of each Yosenju Kama 1, Kama 2, and Kama 3. Those are the ones that actually start the summoning chains, and can usually give you the best effects. Kama 1 bounces a face-up card, Kama 2 can attack directly, which then can enable Kama 3, who can search a Yosenju card if another Yosenju inflicts battle damage. You'll want to try and get at least 2 of these in your hand as fast as possible. Then we run 1 Tsujuk who boosts the attack of other Yosenjus, 3 Isna who can draw you a card, and then 1 Magat and 2 Oyam. Magat either lets you do some weird rank 6 plays, or allows you faster access to Oyam, who basically protects you from direct attacks by summoning itself, and then gaining attack equal to your opponent's monster's original attack. If it's destroyed by battle though, it also gives you a surge, so either way it's pretty good. We then back all of that up with 3 Yosenju Sword Sting, which is basically a double compulse as long as you have 2 Yosenjus in hand. Next we have our Kaiju package, which consists of 3 Radian, 3 Thunder King, and 3 Kyoto Waterfront. The field spell can search the Kaijus, as well as giving them additional effects. Thunder King's additional effect is that you can just stop your opponent from activating any additional effects that turn, and then it gets up to 3 attacks on monsters, while Radian summons a 2800 attack token to help you easily ATK. More importantly though, neither of these effects are quick effects, so even if you give one to your opponent while you have counters on your Kyoto Waterfront, your opponent won't be getting anything of value out of them. To back all of that up, we run 3 Battle Faders. You can't always rely on Oyam saving you from being OTK'd, so this is just a bit of extra insurance. As far as cards like this go, it's probably the best at doing what it does, since it ends the entire battle phase on summon, and situationally you can even use it as a tribute for Magat. We also run a Vishuda, since it's yet another compulse-like effect, and also a 300 damage since we turn it into a Monk of the Tenyi. We'd run more if it wasn't on the limited list, but they realised how generically good that effect was in this format. Then, for some staple back row, run 2 Forbidden Chalice, for a quick play negate that could also be used to make your own kaiju stronger if it's fighting the same Kaiju on your opponent's field. We then run 3 compulsory evacuation advice, since I've basically been talking about cards similar to this card the entire deck profile, so not running the original would be a bit strange. Finally, 3 more Lost Winds gives you access to a few more negates, and it can even occur itself when your opponent summons from the extra deck, so it's a lot of value from a single card. Oh yeah, and it halves the attack of whatever you use it on, so it's another way of getting over a Kaiju mirror match if you really need to. So now we're onto the extra deck, which obviously isn't too central to this deck, but it does come up occasionally. To start off, Black Ship of Corn is a monster destruction with an additional 1000 burn, potentially useful to finish your opponent off. Thunderspark is a field wipe, Night Pappy Operative is a high attack monster, and Rhapsodian Berserk can be like a DD Crow. Diamond Crab can also help you get over some cards, while Gagaga Samurai can attack twice, which is occasionally better than just keeping them as 2 separate monsters on the field. Then for one that all Duel Links players will know, Malevolent Sin temporarily removes something from the field and has a ton of attack, so it's great for getting past walls and securing an OTK. This plus Radiant and its token are exact lethal, so do keep that in mind when you're actually trying to go for game. We also have 2 rank 6s, which are Force Focus. You can negate a high level monster as a quick effect, which may or may not be useful depending on how this meta evolves. Then there's also Shogi Rook, which can destroy a monster and a face down back row, at the cost of probably not being able to OTK that turn. Now for our links, Monk of the 10 is here to turn Vishuda into a non-effect monster, Pentastag is here to give Thunder King piercing damage, and Track Black potentially allows you to draw 3 from Thunder King's multiple attacks. Geonator Transverser is another way to get a Kaiju back on your field, potentially swapping it for something like your Battle Fader, but it's also just a good way to get rid of some monsters that will be hard to deal with otherwise. Resvelga can have a ton of attack in some matchups, while also banishing something from your opponent's graveyard, while Rugal can summon back a Yosenju from the graveyard before adding it back to your hand in the end phase so that you can normal summon it again next turn. Anyway, like I said, the extra deck isn't fundamental to this deck, so don't worry about it too much. Instead, you'll be a lot more focused on Kaijuing your opponent and then returning it to the hand. But instead of me just describing that, why don't I show you? Let's have a look at some replays. For this first one, let's start by showing you what a fairly good hand looks like. It's got 3 Kamas, and while they can't summon themselves, you can summon a second one, who can then summon a second copy of the first one, as you'll soon see. It's also got a Kaiju and a trap, so really pretty much everything you'll ever need. As you've probably noticed by now, my opponent is playing Prankids with super rare and ultra rare cards. I'm actually just testing this out in ranked so I can get this video out to you before the festival starts. But hey, if it works against real decks, it really should do fairly well in the event. My opponent ends on a Battle Battler backed up by a few more cards that aren't too threatening really, besides the fact that their attack stat is too high for me to beat over. After drawing a Compulse for turn, I start by tributing Battle Battler just to get that out of the way. It summons back a Dodoodle-Doo, which isn't really much more than just an annoyance. I then normal summon a Kama 1, who summons a Kama 3, who then summons the second Kama 1. The Kaiju's not being hard ones per turns is really good in hands like this since you can just keep bouncing them back. After destroying Dropsies in battle to prevent it from being linked away next turn, I set both of my traps and end my turn, getting back all of my Yosenjus. Back to my opponent's turn, they start by normal summoning an Ash Blossom in attack mode. Now the only reason you'd ever really do that is if you're about to link it away, so I quickly bounce my Kaiju as a Compulse. Sure enough, that seems to ruin their plans for the turn, so they pass it back to me. As soon as they see me going for another series of normal summons, while I didn't actually really have lethal yet, they know I'll be able to keep up enough advantage in this game from this point onwards, so they just scoop. So that was an example of a typical hand that does actually have enough Kamas to work. For this second game, I basically just wanted to showcase how you can quickly build up lethal very quickly with Kyoto Waterfront and 2 Kaijus. The duel itself is really nothing spectacular, with my opponent playing Blue Eyes and Bricking, and my starting hand being a bit slow to get going, so let's just speed through the first 2 turns to hurry things up. I could have gotten a draw from Izuna, but that gets ashed, which is actually just good for me since it lets me search another Yosenju as Kama 3 when I get in some battle damage. Sadly, Kama 3 gets banished with a battle trap, so I'm more or less in the same situation I was at the start. All my opponent does in their turn is send a stone to the graveyard so that they can make a Blue Eyes in the end phase, so I'm not really threatened at all. Like I said, this is just showing off the OTK here. So to start off, I tribute the Blue Eyes, getting a 3rd counter on Kyoto Waterfront. That does let me search the Thunder King, but even though it has higher attack, I won't actually be going with that, since my opponent only has 1 monster. Instead, I summon a Radiant, and then start the normal summon chain to get out 2 Yosenjus. That gets my Radiant back into my own hand from the bounce, as well as giving me a draw from Isna. Now as the field spell, I remove some counters from it to get a Radiant token. Now even if my opponent had another monster on the field, by making a Malevolent Sin first, I could banish it temporarily, and then I could go to game with just these 3 monsters together, even if my opponent was still on full health. So hopefully that will give you an idea of how to play Yosenju in the upcoming festival. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to my tier 2 patrons Jason Moat and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!